UIC. Freedom the people of need. Hell yeah. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want. Freedom the people of need. Yeah, yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road, me say yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road. Ready for broke every chain. The when you free up the people, levitate. Jamaica member, you ever great. I feel burn up the fire upon every snake. Me give thanks in every way. God still a look down once see we safe. I see around the road long time. GLP and PMP I sell we out. Till I do the test even though we know the end result. If them coulda kill with them catch we and hang we know. No force no coercion, me freedom in a step. No want to rob we and kill we and feel them I go make it out. You know see the leeches, you know see the hands of the devil when him sleep with. You know see the leeches, you know see the hands of the devil when him sleep with. Yeah, yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road, me say yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road. Yeah, me drop the braffing now, none of them laughing now. What them talking about? Everything cement and we not talking growth. Jamaican intellectuals are marching now. Them couldn't get the last laugh, no them laugh.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nika Williams, the treasurer for the UIC, and welcome back to another edition of the UIC Liberty TV. Now, today we'll be discussing or giving you rather an update on the financials of the UIC. So this is something that we plan on doing every week or every to keep you updated on what is happening, right? So before we move on, let me just introduce the persons that we have on here. So we have Gary Aljo is our chairman for the finance committee. We have Owen Aljo, who is a member of the finance committee, and we have Chase Neal, who is general secretary, shadow minister, operations director, and a lot more. All right, so introduce yourselves, everybody. Go ahead, Mr. Aljo. Gary, that is.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. Pleasant good evening. My name is Gary Aljo. I'm a member of the Finance Committee and chairing the Finance Committee. My background, just give a little bit of the background of myself. I was born in Jamaica and born in Ocherius, grew up in Brownstown, attended York Castle High School before migrating. Well, York Castle and then Brownstown Community College for a semester or a term, and then migrated to Florida, where I attended Miami-Dade College, did an Associate of Arts degree in Business Administration, and then transferred to Florida International University, where I did my bachelor's in Business Administration, majoring in accounting. After graduating from there, I went on to Barry University, where I did my MBA, and with a concentration in accounting and management, with some financing core courses as well. So from there, I entered the workforce, started in the international banking, and for a few years, maybe about 3-4 years, and then went on to the NGO, a quasi-government organization, where I handled the budget for programs within that organization. After doing that for a while, I decided that I want to be on my own, entrepreneurial spirit. So I decided to take the exam, the Certified Public Accounting exam. Was successful in that, and then opened my practice. From there, and that was in 1995, started public accounting practice and have been doing that, growing the practice and doing consulting work, public accounting work, tax work, um, the whole spectrum of public accounting I've pretty much covered. And I've been involved in many industries, from the health industry, construction, real estate, um, all of those industries that I've consulted in those areas, not for profit as well, schools, education as well. So I've touched quite a large breadth of the industries that exist today. And I'm also a certified management accountant, also a certified business manager. I'm also a chartered accountant. So I think I'm pretty much equipped to handle the finances of the UIC at this time. So I'll end
Okay.
at that, because I can go
And
on for.
not a problem. And I know many of the viewers may be wondering why they're seeing two same persons on the screen, but they're two different people. May have similar stories at that, but let's welcome Owen Aljo. So just tell them a little about yourself, Mr. Owen.
Sure, yes. Pleasant, good afternoon, good evening to all. Yeah, basically, a member of the finance committee, also a member of the jump committee as well. I won't go over everything because we have basically followed the same steps. We have gone through high school, college, universities together, you know. So we have gone through that track, pretty much the same. The difference would come really after university. Different tracks were taken within the same financial field. But where Gary concentrated in accounting, I was more focused on finance and investments and management. So that was a era, that was a track that I moved into. Worked in the public sector, both on the state level and the county level. I've risen to budget director, director of accounting in certain aspects, and operations manager in different, as the growth took place in the public sector. Also did some work in the private sector as well, right? So we are sharing similar backgrounds, and then I moved on into private practice, primarily into financing as opposed to accounting, and looking at project financing, and I'm looking at international project financing and domestic, as in US financing as well, real estate, mortgages, which is residential. So the whole gamut of the finance industry is what we have been looking at over the last 30 years or so. The 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 history behind the working career. Yeah. So pretty much, so we are here on it to lend our assistance and in whatever way we possibly can to the UIC and make it as successful as ever, and guide it in the path of transparency. So that's what it's all about,
Right.
and accuracy. So
Right.
that's pretty
And
much it.
the UIC appreciates your efforts. For you and Mr. Aljo, the UIC does appreciate your efforts. All right.
Yes, thank you.
Uh,
Appreciate that.
right. Let's move on now to Chase Neal. Give us a little introduction, sir.
All right, thank you, Naika. Good day, good night, good afternoon, everywhere you are around the world, Jamaicans in the diaspora and at home. I am Chase Neal, I'm General Secretary of the UIC. I also wear other hats. I am Shadow Minister for the Shadow Ministry of Education and Human Development, Parish Manager for St. Mary, and other roles.
Wow.
All right, a little about me. I was born in Kingston, but I've spent most of my life in um, St. Mary rural parish, where I'm in one of the most rural parish, Geddiston. Most of my background has been in teaching. After leaving high school, the St. Mary High School, I spent some time as a pre-trained teacher before I went to Teachers College, and there I got certified in teaching double option English, which is really English language, English literature, communication studies, that whole gamut of English-related subjects. Um, I taught in the government system for around 12 years, both at high school level and at primary school level, um, until I contracted an autoimmune disease, which is hereditary in my family, that made me unable to work as I should. And then I had to be taking steroids, which did nothing to the condition but made me get bloated and fat. No, I found the cure through traditional Chinese medicine. For those of you who know about Tai Chi and acupressure, and it worked for me. Started to balance out my symptoms. I started reviving, and that started an interest in traditional medicine. So that now I am studying for a doctorate in Oriental medicine and integrative medicine. So that takes in the whole gamut of herbal medication, body work, which is like healing massage, acupuncture, all of that. So that's where I'm at, still teaching, but now teaching online while I'm pursuing my doctorate. I am involved in youth development, especially in cadeting. I am a member of the Jamaica Combined Cadet Force at the rank of lieutenant. I'm also in a church-based and church school-based cadet organization called the Ranger Cadet Combined Corps, of which I am the head. So I serve in two paramilitary voluntary youth organizations. I guess that's it about me for now. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure having you.
You're welcome, sir. And I know the audience with, I don't want you to think I'm rude, and I know you guys are used to getting your personal shout outs from Mr. Patterson, who I see in the comments. So go to Anne Marie, uh, Yolanda, good afternoon, JMH, good afternoon, Leah Lord, AV, Hermina, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. So we said into Ocean, which will be done by Gary Ajo.
Okay. Okay. The presentation. I wonder, Nico, would it be possible for you to go through yours before I do? Would that be possible? And then I'll come back at the end and wrap it up. Hello?
Okay, so the main reason why we're here is to explain why, or why you need to fund the UIC, how the funding is being spent, where it's coming from, and so forth. So we'll be going over, discussing our donations, giving you a funding overview, comparing our income and expenses so you could see what's happening with your money. So first slide would be, how do we obtain income? So as you know, the UIC is strictly funded by donations. So donations may come in the form of some general contributions, membership dues. We also obtain donations through, well, recently through sales of ticket for One Jamaica Walk. Not sure how many of you are aware of, to obtain donation from the merchandise. So as you know, we do sell t-shirts to our sub and persons who are actually in the organization itself. Sorry. So for this chart, it shows our income over a 5-month. So in the month of January, we collected a total of $482,378.90. That's from all the mediums of donations that I mentioned earlier. In February, we got a $916. In March, we did get $329,325. For April, it was $127,486, and for me, it was $404,420. Now, this slide now explains, where's your money? Is it going in in the Patterson's pocket? Absolutely not. Every money that is donated from the UIC is used solely for what it is donated for. So we use this accounting software to keep track of every cent that, and we ensure that no fund is being misappropriated, misrepresented, or misused. This takes us to the 6th slide. For the expenses, in January, we did spend $281,963. For February, it was $250,754. For March, we did spend $335,938. For April, it was $70,823. And for me, we did spend $287,417. Now, this slide explains where the money is going. So like I said, none of it is going to the Pattersons, because I know some persons are still have that idea in their head. All right, so funds go to contract services. As you know, we currently, as explained in the last live that we had, we currently now have 2 staff members who are being paid. All right, money also goes towards printing and promotion, canvassing, food and beverage. That's for if we're having an event. For example, the 14 parish tour that took place last December, the UIC was the one who funded all of those things, right? And also for software subscriptions. So even for this platform that we're using, we have to pay monthly subscriptions for it. And there are others that we use to keep track of our everyday activities. This graph now explains or shows the comparison between the income and the expenses. So if you notice, in January, the income was more than the expenses, as well as in February, May, and April. But for March, it was a little bit over. We did spend a little bit over what we had, but it goes like that sometimes. Because as I told you, you are the ones who are funding us. We do not get funding from all the bigger companies like the other 2 parties do. So we mainly get funding from you. And this, right, so this shows our total income and our total expenses, as well our net profit. So over the 5-month period, we got a total of $1,772,814, and we did spend $1,100,000 $187,766. So at the end of May, we had a net profit of $585,047. Now, this diagram basically concludes everything that I said before. So it shows how the money came into the UIC and what it is spent on. All right, this concludes my slide. I think we can take Gary's presentation now.
All right. Good evening again, everyone. I'd first like to say thank you for being here, because you could be so many places other than at the UIC meeting this evening. So it's a special thanks for that, as well as your contributions. For those who have contributed, I'm very, very thankful and grateful for that, because without your contribution, we certainly would not be where we are today. So a special thanks for that as well. I'd first like to start with just a little bit on the balance sheet, just a synopsis of the balance sheet, which gives us really the health of the organization at a specific time, a point in time, which is in this case the 31st of May 2022. Total cash increased by 745,000 over the corresponding period of 2021, calculating about 220%. Total current asset increased by 1,287,575, a total of about 349% over the corresponding period. Total asset increased by 771,224 for a 170% increase, and total current liabilities increased by 235,513, an increase of about 76.99%. Now, the difference between the current asset and the current liabilities give what's called the working capital. And what that is, it's for the ability of the organization, in this case the UIC, to sell its current asset, to liquidate that, and use it to satisfy its debt if anything should go wrong. In this case, the UIC would be able to do that. The working capital increased by $1,305,285. So they're in good health in terms of the balance sheet. The current ratio is about 4.73, which means that the current assets of the UIC is 4 times as much, or close to 5 times as much as its current liabilities. So that's a good measure. Usually 2 to 1 is where we like it to be. 5 to 1 is extremely good. So given the limited resources that the UIC has, it has been able to manage it very well. But because it's done very well doesn't mean that we don't need the contributions. This is utmost important, is we have to increase contributions tremendously. And I'll go through that towards the end of my presentation to show the importance of the increase in contribution. I just want to look at the second thing before I move on to the revenue and expenditure is an update on the bank account situation. The UIC is still operating without a formal UIC bank account. It's using the account of members, but just want to emphasize though that this is strictly UIC's transactions. There are no commingling of personal transactions within these accounts. However, we have been working to resolve this issue, and I think we are in the process of getting a resolution, but we just keep our fingers crossed that all goes well. And maybe by the next meeting or the meeting follow, we'll be able to give good news in that regard. Also, I'd like to say that because of the financial state of the UIC, in the sense that not much funds, or the funds that we would like it, where we would like it to be, it's not there as yet. Members from time to time contribute to the purchase of items, the payment of expenses on behalf of the UIC. So in that regard, they loan money to the UIC, of which the UIC will at some point pay back as it goes on and the contribution increases. So we are grateful for the members also who find it within themselves to pay on behalf of the UIC and also loan the monies to the UIC, and that includes Mr. and Mrs. Patterson in the process. In regard to the revenues and expenditures, I know Nika had gone through those, so I won't go into details of that. But in terms of operating expenses as a percentage of income that the UIC gets is about 66.19%, which is pretty good. Would like to see it a bit higher than that. The surplus is about 33%, which is good, and that would be good for a private entity. But in a not-for-profit organization, the whole idea is to spend the contributions in the most effective and efficient way, of which the surplus is really not too relevant in that sense. So the lower we can keep the surplus, then the better it is for the organization to spend on its core expenses to meet its overall objectives. But in the UIC's case, there's an exception to that because of the contribution amount. And then we'll go over that towards the end of the presentation. I'll point out the reason why that surplus has to be a bit higher than we would like it to be. In regard to the breakdown of the expenses in regard to percentage of revenues, the core expenses, which we consider that to be expenses for which the purpose of the organization is established, which is to meet its political objectives. One would be like canvassing, the parish tours, the food and beverages for the participants of those events, and so on. We consider those to be the core expenses. The supporting expenses are the ones that support the back office, basically, the accounting service and other program administrative functions, so that the organization continues and it support the recording of the transactions and make sure that the organization stays healthy in a financial and programmatic way. So in regard to the core expenses, they're about 38% of the income that came in was spent on core expenses. Would really love to see that much higher than that, probably closer to 60 to 70%. The supporting expenses are about 33%. I would like to see that reduced as a percentage of income. And it will, because as the income increases, the supporting services are pretty much fixed costs, which means that they really don't change over a period of time. So the more income comes in, is the less percentage of the income is consumed by the supporting expenses. General administrative is about 28%, and would love to see that decrease to around about 5 to 10%. But then again, that has to do with the contribution, because the contribution amount is so low at this time, then the monies, percentage of the monies that comes in have to meet the general and the supporting services, and it's consuming a fairly large percentage of which could be appropriated to the core expenses of the UIC. So the emphasis then is an increase in contribution amount in order to meet those core expenses and carry out the activities of the UIC that will allow it to form the next government. In terms of the revenue, which is one of the great focus of my presentation as well, because without the contribution, the UIC will not be able to get to where it wants to be, or it needs to be actually, because it needs to form the new government so that it can represent the people of Jamaica the way they ought to be represented at this time. Total contributions, for example, from persons in Jamaica, and this is in United States dollars, so it's broken out in USD dollars. For the period from January 1 to the 31st of May 2022 is about $2,725 USD. Total contributions for persons outside of Jamaica, which would be about 74% or 7,826. And Naika, if you can, let me just go back to your slide number 5. And if it's possible for you to put that up for a minute, so I can just explain. That's my slide number 5.
That is slide 5 on your presentation.
Okay, let me see. I think, can you go to slide one below that? Do you have a slide 6?
Yes, I do.
Oh, let's go to slide 6. Okay, right. Let's go to 6 and then we'll go to 7, but let me just look at 6 for the moment. Let me just go back to the operating expense. I just want to graphically represent what I had explained earlier in terms of the core, the supporting, and the general and administrative. The core expenses is a dark blue, and it's contributing about 38%. Would really love for it to take up a portion of that supporting expense and a portion of that general and administrative expense. So that's one of the ways that we are structuring the whole spending. But for this to happen, the contribution has to increase, because as is the contribution, the supporting services consuming about 33% of income, and the general and administrative about another 23%. And then if we can go to slide, the next one down, Nika. Okay, and the revenue distribution of the core expenses. One, it shows that the surplus of 585,047 is a bit high for the organization. As I said, the organization role really is to satisfy its political objectives, and that is to mobilize the people, mobilize its members, its councillors, its MPs, to get everything in place for the upcoming elections, both the local and the general election. But to do that, income has to be there to support it. And the income would then be spent mainly on those core expenses at about 60 to 70%. So I just wanted to emphasize that so that, the viewers and the audience understands that contribution is so important to drive the whole objectives of the UIC. So it's very, very important. And if we can go to what would be slide number 1, Naika. And then as the slide number 1 comes up, it's the case where the contribution from persons in Jamaica is about 2,725 USD, and for the contribution persons outside of Jamaica, 7,826. So if we can go, I think that one is, can you go forward to the first slide, Naika? Oh, okay. So as the slides are assembled, let me just go ahead and then I can jump back to that if I need to. In terms of the UIC contribution on a month-to-month basis, from January to March to May, sorry, from January to May, the contribution. The number of persons contributing in January were about 70 persons. In March, it dropped to 49 persons. I'm sorry, in February, it dropped to 49. In March, it went up to 52. In April, it dropped again to 39. And in May, it went back to 59. So, there are some changes there. As a matter of fact, in the term of the percentage of change from January and February, it dropped about 30%. Then in February to March, it increased about 6%. March to April, it dropped again 25%. And then from April to May, it increased 51%. And these are the change in the number of persons that contribute to the UIC. In terms of the persons contributing from Jamaica, because I broke it out between Jamaica and the US, similar change in January to February. Regard to Jamaica contributing in January the number was 19. Sorry, in January was 13, February was 19, March 18, April 13, and May 16. Again, the change in January to February was a 46% increase in persons from Jamaica that were contributing to the UIC. Then between February and March, it dropped 5%. Then from March to April, it dropped 28%. And then from April to May, it increased 23%. So we can see that it's an up and down situation. The persons from outside of Jamaica contributing to the UIC. In January, there were 57. In February, there were 30. In March, 34. In April, 26. And again, May, 43. So in terms of both Jamaica and persons from the US, they exhibit the same, more or less, the same movement of up and down from month to month. The change, for example, of the persons in the US contributing to the UIC from January to February decreased by 47%. February to March increased by 13%. March to April decreased by 24%. And April to May increased by 65%. So we're seeing this up and down. So it's not consistent from month to month. So as a result of that, there are a lot of uncertainties in the budgeting aspect of it and the spending, because what is spent one month, the contribution may not be able to cover the next month. So as a result, that's the reason why the surplus maintained by the UIC is a bit higher than we would like it to be, because of the volatility in the income stream coming through contributions. So that would really love to see that contribution be a bit more steady. But for that to happen, the base would have to increase. The number of persons contributing to the UIC would have to increase tremendously so that we can have a smoothing out of that income stream upon which spending can then be better effectively spent on the core expenses to meet the objectives of the UIC. The good thing, though, is that the average contribution amount were pretty high. So even though currently we're operating on a small base, the persons that are contributing a fairly large portion on the average. The average total contribution, for example, in January was $44 per person. In February, $36.51. In March, $42.04. April, it dropped to $21.13. And May, it increased back close to where January, actually it exceeded January, of $45.28. So I think there was, and this is explained by some internal shocks that happened in about March, April, that caused a reduction in the contributions, it appears, but then the resolution of that saw a rebound exceeding that of March, April, to take it close to where it was in January, and in terms of the average, a little higher than it was in January. And the average total contributions for persons in Jamaica also exhibited that trend as well. Actually, it got a little bit higher in February and March, and dropped tremendously in April as a result of that internal shock. And so with that, it has recovered marginally, but we will see what happens in June. June is going to validate the recovery and to stipulate where and how quickly the UIC can move. What else I'd love to say is the contributions are the key. Without those contributions from donors, it is hard for the UIC to meet its objective. So it is imperative, I cannot emphasize it anymore, how important it is to increase the donor base. So the average contribution is good. However, the base is a bit low. That base needs to be expanded tremendously so that we can at least meet that challenge which had been put out the last, not the last time, but the time before, where we're challenging to have 1,000 donors of at least $25 each, which would give us, that's per month, US, which would give us about 25,000 per month. That would be a very good start, a good solid foundation on which to build. So we're still putting that challenge out there. And in regard to the $25, let me just have a look at that, because the persons giving $25 or more is quite good. In terms of January, 58.75% of the donors were giving $25 USD or more. In February, 42.86%. In March, 46.15%. In April, 41%. And then in May, it jumps to 57.63%. So that challenge, I think there was an uptake in that challenge of the 25, because there was a great increase between April and May. But let's see what happens in June. I hope that trend continues, because it is so necessary for the UIC to have that. And with that, I would like to then open for other committee members to contribute to the presentation, and for and then after it goes back to Naiko, where the floor will be opened up for any questions or comments. Okay, I think we may be having a little bit of communication error there. Let's see how we can resolve that issue. Maybe if Owen could come in and give his comments.
Right, yes. Okay. Yeah, I think, yeah, everything is up. All right. Yeah, in respect to the presentation, something jumped out at me, which is in the current assets, as a major part of the contribution, the sales of T-shirts. But when you look at the number and the T-shirts in terms of the value that is in current assets, it's like $533,000 that is tied up in T-shirts. So that's a little over $500,000. So what that means is that assets are there in the UIC, but it's non-productive. Right? It's not contributing anything in terms of cash. So how do we resolve that? That would have to be resolved by making sure that the members purchase their T-shirts, right? And by doing that, it supports the UIC in many ways, right? Number one, by purchasing your T-shirts, convert that inventory that is sitting right there in current assets. You now convert it to cash, right? For every sale would generate cash for the UIC. That cash now can be used to be passed on to operations, and where the councillors and MPs can now be empowered with this release of monies, release of cash, so they can disseminate more information to the community, to the constituency, and to the national areas in concerns. Right? So entire Jamaica would be able to benefit from the conversion of those T-shirts into cash. Right? So because the information generating to the community and the nation would now put UIC on the front page. They'll be able to disseminate all this information for people to know what the UIC is about. All right, so that's number one. Number two, by purchasing your UIC T-shirts and wearing those T-shirts, you now become an advertising board for UIC, a moving advertising board. All right, so you'll be covering areas wherever you move, wherever you go. All right, so that is information that would serve the UIC well. Persons would be able to see the shirts and see what is on it and recognize the UIC, and that gives the members an opportunity to meet and greet and to share information with the community and persons you get in contact with. All right, and that's number two. Number three is that by putting on these T-shirts and getting into the community, spreading the good word, you are also representing the UIC as an ambassador of the UIC. All right, so you're now an ambassador of the UIC once you have those shirts on. All right, so people are looking at you to evaluating who the UIC is based on the persons who are wearing those T-shirts. All right, so it's very important. You can see where the T-shirts play a very important role in the whole operations of the UIC. It serves many purposes, and I think we need to put a drive out to get more of these T-shirts sold and to move them out of inventory, move them out of the current assets where they are, right? And get that 500,000 down substantially. And that was one of the observations I had. I think Gary covered pretty much everything else, and Naika also covered as well. So that pretty much was where I picked up a bit of concern. So I pass it back over to the chair.
I'm back. Hope everybody can hear me. Are you hearing? Can you hear me? Hearing me, Owen?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Uh-huh.
Oh, great, great. I wasn't getting the feedback just. Sorry, I had
Oh.
cough just now. I was having some internet issues, but I'm back now.
Okay.
Get him on now so he can give his input.
All right, thank you, Naika. Can everyone hear me? I hope everyone can hear me. All right, I'd like to show appreciation for the Aljos and for Naika. They have been doing wonderful work on the finance committee. All right, I'd like to restate the importance of donation. We had a job fair on May 31 at Ligani, and an attendee to the job fair asked me a question. What will the UIC do if we don't get enough donations to run for government? The thing is, we can do nothing if the people don't see the importance of putting UIC in government to advocate for all of us. So the thing is, none of us is running for our sake. We are running for the sake of Jamaica and our fellow Jamaicans. So every Jamaican is a shareholder and an owner of the UIC. And if it is that we want to see Jamaica better, then we must contribute to the cause so that we are able to do the work on behalf of the people. Um, Last year, I think it was about March, there was a member, well, I shouldn't say a member, there was someone who had joined our WhatsApp group, and they were telling us that we need to stop talking about the vaccine, right? And that the person said they could link us up to some money. I think the figure was about 6 million US. Now, I am not sure if that person was bluffing or not, but for us corporate interests to silence our voice on behalf of the people, that is a no-no. So because whoever gives you money controls you, the UIC will not be taking funding from any big money corporations who can then come and control us as they have control over the two major parties. So it is the people for whom we do this, the people who are part of the movement, who support the movement, who must give to the movement so that we can work on your behalf. I've been looking at some of the comments in the chat. I appreciate some of the suggestions that we do some work to make people see us more. But the thing is, if we go out, for example, to fix roads, fixing roads will cost a ton load. Where will that money come from? So if it is that we are going to be doing projects that cost a lot of capital, the capital must come from somewhere. Now, if you want us to do these things on behalf of Jamaican people, then Jamaican people must want it and empower us to do this. So that is what it is. Now we have a program rolling out, which is a big thing. Um, I don't remember the name of the person that well, there were two persons I think who had suggested that we do something and then UIC will be unstoppable. Our jump program, we are rolling out the jump program. It will be coming out shortly. Through the jump program, we will have community capital clubs in it is all over the island, and through the community capital clubs, we will be teaching our members, will be teaching the people of Jamaica how to manage money efficiently. So your salary that can barely make ends meet, you will be shown how to empower yourself through that little salary. The meager thing that they give you and expect you to live off, we show you now how to take a little bit of that and make it into something much. And then you invest or use it to start small businesses, and we teach you how. That's one aspect of the jump program. Another aspect of the jump program is using contributions and borrowing against all the contributions so as to empower ourselves financially. Um, presentations on the jump program before on UIC Liberty TV. There'll be more coming up. But that's one of the big things that we'll be doing, empowering Jamaicans financially to lift themselves out of poverty, in addition to community development and civic training, teaching people about how to be responsible politically. Because the thing is, although we are very political, we do not really understand politics. But stay tuned for Jump program. That is one thing we'll be doing. If you have any other ideas, supporters, members of how we can get that oomph out there for more support, whether by donations or through volunteerism, let us know. We are here listening. Um, for the question about the job fair turned out very well. The attendees would have benefited from donations. We had taken some names and contact numbers, so when we are aware of job vacancies, we link these people up with the jobs. Also, we have collected their signatures so that we can present a letter to the Prime Minister restatement of there not being enough skilled workers in Jamaica. We want to champion on behalf of the skilled workers and of all workers in Jamaica. So the job fair went well. Stay tuned to another job fair coming up shortly. No, so that is my presentation for now. Again, thank you to the Finance Committee for managing USC's finances so well. All right, you have our gratitude for that. And for our partner supporters, we look forward to working with you even more closely. All right, take care, guys.
Wonderful. So now I think we can take questions from our supporters. A lot of comments, but questions, not many questions coming in. All right, so I'm seeing Miss Jan, Mr. Patterson very active in the section. So some question for you. No questions from the audience? Well, I think with that being said, good night, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight's live. We wish it could have been longer. It's about an hour since we've been here. Do come out next time. We'll be having a live soon. We plan on giving you a live and then up the financials, like I said before, either every week or to let you know what's happening. So thanks. Before I go, there's one from Omari Jones that said, what will the UIC do to get more media coverage? Well, Omari, thank you so much for that question. For media coverage, say we have 80 persons on this live. If all 80 persons should share this call to, let's say, 10 persons or 20 persons in their contacts, that way we could do somewhat of a network format. So you share it to 20 persons, that other 20 persons will share it to another 20, and that's how we could increase the amount of persons that we reach with our content. Any other questions? Nope. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you in our good night.